Welcome to the Therapeutic Food Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Mary Mitchell. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach, therapeutic diet expert, and founder of The Road to Living Whole. There are many different diets out there. It's hard to know which one is right for you with your chronic illness and autoimmune disease. In this podcast, I'm going to share with you the foundational pieces every single therapeutic diet out there shares, and also how to use the best one for your particular diagnosis. If you've been looking for a meal planning partner, help navigating the complicated healthcare system, and want to feel better quickly, I'm your girl. Grab your kombucha and notebook. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I am super stoked for today's guest. His name is Cydian Kauffman, and he is a water treatment expert, water science expert, and he has a company, Pure Water Northwest. He knows a lot, and he is going to talk to us about some things in water that are detrimental to our health, really, and strategies and options that we have to minimize exposure to these chemicals. But first, I'm going to let him introduce himself and share his story to where he came to where he is now. So, Cydian, welcome.
Hi, thanks. I really appreciate you having me on. I got into water treatment in a kind of funny way. I was a property manager actually, and every once in a while we would have tenants come to us with like brown water or water that smelled like rotten eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And, it'd be my job to take it in and get it tested. And the crazy thing happened. They would come back and they would say, this is within the legal levels. It said,
Ew.
this water's fine to drink. And I was like, this water is not fine to drink. So I would have to so I went on a mission to try and figure out why. And that actually led me to the founder of Pure Water Northwest, Chris Pelton, who is kind of as far as water quality experts go, he far surpasses me. And he explained to me that the EPA actually has two standards for drinking water. They have a health standard and then they have a legal level. So,
Okay.
yeah, right. So when it comes to the health standard, for example, the health standard for arsenic is 0, but the legal standard is 0.01 parts per million, meaning you can have some arsenic in your water that is above the health standard. It's really that simple. And so then there's a bunch of stuff that has no standard. So what was going on with that brown smelly water is it had iron bacteria, and hydrogen sulfide, which smells like rotten eggs. And so that kind of like those three things together, they are at the levels they were at are totally within the legal limit set by the EPA. And some of them have no health standards at all. That got me really interested in water. And then my daughter also had nummular eczema, which Chris also mentioned that a softener can help with that, which I had my doubts about that. But we ended up putting a softener in and her skin got better. She didn't have any more eczema at all after that. The only time she gets it again is when she visits a place that doesn't have a softener. So it got me hooked. I was hooked after that. I was like, this is absolutely fascinating. I kind of bought into the business. I'm the owner now. Chris has moved to Alaska, but that's how I got in. That's what got me hooked into water treatment. I've been studying it and studying it and studying it like crazy ever since.
And how long ago was that?
7 years ago.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
You're an expert. So I love that you talk. I'm so sorry your daughter experienced that, but that eczema is so common.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody's changing their detergents and their lotions and their sheets and their clothes, and it's as simple
It
as
might, yeah.
water.
I do want to say that we've tried this with some people with eczema, and they've reported it only improved their eczema, it didn't get rid of it. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to like call this
Blanket.
a blanket like a panacea for eczema, but We have had at least 8 customers who have, well, 6 customers had eczema and 2 customers who had rosacea, and the water treatment system solved all of their problems.
Yeah, well, and that's what we're talking about today is water matters. And it's so funny how everybody's body reacts to toxins differently. Some people can filter out toxins better. Some people, it impacts them in other ways. And skin is one of those ways. It's not, an eczema and rosacea, they have other root causes, but there's nothing, cleaning up our water is super important. So let's talk about some of the chemicals that are harming health that we know of, not only that makes the water look bad and taste weird, but also can actually environmentally be toxic to our bodies, and our bodies can react in multiple ways. But there's things like fluoride, which has recently come to the front side. A lot of states are starting to ban it now, which is super exciting. We have PFAs that are coming to the forefront. We have microplastics. I feel like those are the three that I see over and over and over again. And I think it's really important that we talk about them, but there's also other chemicals that you might be able to share with us that come in, such as like arsenic. And I was also thinking, I have family that's in the farming belt, and I can only imagine the pesticides and herbicides and fungicides that get into their water and all of that. So we obviously can't dive into everything, but let's talk about some of these big ones and then some solutions.
Sure. So when it comes to figuring that out, you got to think about the source of your water. So if your source is more in a rural area, the farming belt, you might actually have a source of water that's just a private well. And in which case, you might be looking more at anything on the periodic table of elements, pesticides, nitrates, but you're not going to be worried about chlorine in any way, shape, or form. So farms have tons of around them. They tend to have tons of nitrates around them. And those are really good things to test for and identify. And then when it comes to city water, because well water can have PFAS, but it's way less likely than a distribution system.
Really
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Well, because it has to actually get in there more directly. And so you have PFAS coming from one of the main sources it gets into the water is from fire foams,
Okay.
where, fire departments have to either because they're, practicing or because they literally have to put out a fire. It then makes its way into the runoff, and then it gets into the system, and then it's treated as best it can. But forever chemicals are very hard to get rid of completely.
Hmm.
And any getting rid of them that happens is just capturing it and putting it in a landfill because it's called forever chemicals for a reason.
Yeah, they
Um,
don't go away.
yeah, exactly. So as you mentioned before, some people are better than other at filtering things out. It is true that if you're not filtering your water ahead of time, you are the filter. And so what effect that has on people is very different. I had a couple that we helped with their arsenic. They didn't know they had arsenic. And they were both very fit. They were in their 40s. But the guy was about 200 pounds and the woman was about 100 pounds. And he was suffering the effects of arsenic on one of his organs, and she had no health effects. And they drank nearly the same amount of water. I mean, he obviously drank a little more, but they drank nearly the same amount of water. So body weight and size does not necessarily relate to how resistant you're going to be. It's going to be something about the efficiency of your organs, and she was just better at filtering it or getting rid of it.
Hmm.
In theory, the problem with metals, of course, in water is you're not necessarily getting rid of them without chelation.
Right.
If they don't go out in your waste, they're sitting in your fat cells, wrapping around your nerve endings and having whatever effect they have there.
Hmm.
So um, arsenic is tasteless, odorless, and it is nearly everywhere in the country. meaning it is finding its way. It's on the periodic table and it's finding its way because it just is places. It is sometimes due to factory runoff, but a lot of times it's naturally occurring. And you can go to city municipal reports that test for arsenic, and you'll find levels of arsenic that are above the health guideline, but below the legal level. So they're distributed into the drinking water.
And it's just in the earth. And so we're getting some of it.
Yeah.
I think that's true with a lot of chemicals, and it's really just the consumption level, and again, filtering and all of that. What about fluoride?
Sure. Yeah. Fluoride's a funny topic because everyone's talking about it right now, and it seems to be pretty politically divisive for people. On the one side, people are saying we don't need fluoride at all, and it's harmful to you, and it lowers IQ. And on the other side, we have people saying, why are you getting rid of fluoride? Do you want people to have bad teeth? And the reality is that it's not actually quite, the reality is not quite so binary. It's not quite so two-sided. They did studies 27 years ago, and Harvard very recently did a better study. And the study 27 years ago said that in very high doses, it would lower IQ. That's definitive, we know it. But dosage really matters. This more recent study showed that even lower doses will have an effect on IQ. But that has not been fully peer reviewed all the way yet. There's probably some truth to it though. And on the side of not fluoridating anymore, it's also places like Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland. They don't fluoridate at all, and they have better tooth outcomes than we do in the United States. But they use less sugar. So it is complex. It is complex to actually give a direct answer.
Yeah. So what I heard was that because fluoride, for one, it's like a factory runoff. It's not the fluorine, which is naturally occurring. But what I've heard is that they added it to water before people had access to fluoride toothpaste.
Right.
And now that fluoride toothpaste is affordable, widely available. I mean, you get it for free from the dentist. That's a reason to not add fluoride to the water, because it is detrimental to the nervous system, and we can get it topically and then rinse it out and have much less exposure. I also heard that fluorinated water, not with fluorine, but with the big long chemical name, also has been linked to hypothyroidism, that they used to give fluoride pills to people who had overactive thyroid to slow it down. And so how true is that? Because I mean, I've read it from multiple sources, but it could all be from one source and everybody just expounds on it and refers back to it. So you're in this. Is that something that is true and something to worry about?
The jury's still out on both of those. If I had to, but from what I've read and studied, I am leaning towards it. If you have fluoride in your toothpaste, you don't need to drink fluoride. That is my leaning. And I don't drink fluoride. My kids don't. My dogs don't. I filter it out completely.
Yeah.
I don't even use fluoridated toothpaste anymore, although it is actually fine to use that toothpaste, in my opinion. I use, let me try and remember what this is.
Is it the nanohydroxapate?
There you go. That's
Yeah.
what it was. I could never remember that name, but yeah, I use that. And I actually think my outcomes, I've been using that for a year now, and I think my personal outcomes are better from using that than fluoride toothpaste, actually.
Yeah, I started using it, I think 4 or 5 years ago. Because I was it was like new to the Boca became really big, right?
Yeah.
And that's a Japanese toothpaste, and they were talking about how they haven't used fluoride in Japan in years.
Right.
That they use this, and so I started using it, and I found that quality matters. Not just any brand is going to have particles small enough to actually do the job that they're supposed to do.
Oh,
But what I really like about it is it's safe to swallow. So, like, I have a 1.5-year-old and we're brushing the few teeth that she has. And brushing her teeth is a challenge. And just knowing that I don't have to worry about her swallowing it or that she's getting a bunch of artificial dyes and like glitter in her teeth and all that's like really, really important to me. But yeah, the fact that we have options that are not toxic. And then they have like the fluoride treatments at the dentist and all of that. And it's like when it comes to teeth, obviously diet matters and we're working on that. This is what my passion in life is to get people back to to real whole foods as the foundation, and ultra processed foods are few and far between. I love them just as much as anybody, but it's like they do tear down your health, and your mouth is a good indicator of systemic health.
Yeah.
But going back to water, talk to us about chlorine because you mentioned that, and I want to talk on that because chlorine is one of those things that you see a lot, and it's damaging to the gut. And so is that real? Is there more to it than that though?
So chlorine is in its gaseous form will kill a person. So it's not like it, and this is where we have to go back to the dose matters. People have been drinking chlorine in this country for so many decades now. We have unequivocal proof that it alone is not going to just kill you in the amounts they put in. So now those are two sides of that spectrum, okay? So getting back to more our reality, the amount of chlorine they put into water matters. They are putting around between, you know, 0.5, an amount that distributes into the system, and people who are right next to the treatment plant can get enough that it burns their skin, and people who are at the very end of the line can get so little that they get bacteria in their lines. And the people in the middle are getting an average of 0.5 to as much as 4 parts per million.
So
Uh,
about as much as a swimming pool.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So we bought a house with a pool, and I've taken on the task of keeping chemicals in the water. And one of the ways that I've been able to lower the chlorine content in there is by adding copper.
That's true.
So we add copper to the water so that I can keep it between 0.5 and 2.
Yeah. Don't have
So
to go as up exactly. So that's exactly right. When I go and test people's houses, I actually use a pool tester so that people can see that the levels match pool water,
mhm.
because that is what most municipalities are putting into people's water, and that's what people are drinking. Now, the reason why the pool smells bad and your water from the sink doesn't always smell bad is because that smell is actually a chloramine or a chlorine byproduct that is created from the chlorine doing its job. So you're smelling, when you're at a pool, you are honestly smelling the effects of urine and sweat and dirt and grime being oxidized by the chlorine. So
Okay.
that's what you're actually smelling when you're at a pool, not the chlorine.
Interesting. Now, here in Phoenix, we don't have a lot of indoor pools, so we don't really have that smell unless it's been like it was chlorine day,
Yeah,
like the night before, so that first day it's a little burny.
yeah.
But yeah, but then I've been to places that are only indoor pools, and whew, that's super interesting. I thought that was just the chlorine. I didn't realize that was the chlorine doing its job. That kind of makes it a little bit more gross.
It is a
Uh,
bit. Yeah. And it tells you also what's in your house. So in your house, they are putting in chlorine at the start, but what's arriving in your home is chlorine, dibromochloromethane, trihalomethanes, haloacetic acids, chloroform, bromodichloroacetic acid, that kind of stuff. That's what's
mhm.
actually arriving in your home and what you're drinking and bathing in. So that is the skinny on chlorine. However, if you were to ask me, should we get rid of chlorine? I would say no. We would have so many deaths if we got
Yeah.
rid of chlorine entirely. because it does the best job we've found so far of getting rid of bacteria, and that will kill you much faster.
Yeah. And that's where I think that's where again, the nuance comes in because everybody's so scared of chlorine and testing matters. Again, it's proximity and how much you're getting. My dad was in the military, so they had those big tankers, like the big things of water. And when it was, May through September, they're dumping chlorine in there to keep the water fresh for the service members because otherwise they're going to be having
Yep.
I can't even think diarrhea, vomiting, whatever the name of that is, dysentery is what came to mind. I'm like, there's another word for that. But yeah, we're going to be, people are going to be getting really sick. And it's like, and I think education really matters. Again, like I'm so intrigued that the EPA has a health standard and a legal standard. Can you tell us the difference? Why do they have an allowed limit versus the health limit?
Yeah, I can. I don't even need to guess. They tell you right on the website. They say that the health level is set as close to the legal level as they can get, taking cost and other factors into consideration.
So it's not actually for health
Yeah, so there's the legal level is as close to the health level as
as they can get. Okay.
with taking costs into so the reason why that matters is if you were to have the municipalities get down to zero arsenic, they couldn't. I mean, that it would be billions of dollars per municipality. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
getting it down to the levels they've got it to, they can stay in business. I mean,
Well,
that's
and they're really again, we don't like to taxes go to other things.
yeah,
And they're not going to infrastructure, which is a problem.
that is
And tax dollars are not going towards water treatment plants,
right.
which is beyond frustrating. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, live in the desert. We've had a water shortage my entire life. Um, I don't really give into that because a year ago we had so much rain that they were dumping water carelessly,
Right.
basically, and passing it on. I'm like, we cannot be that low if you guys are just dumping water when we've been in a drought for 8 years. But at the end of the day, they'd rather tax dollars go to other things that I think are much less important than infrastructure and water and all of that. So that where that comes in is we kind of have to take on the rest of it ourselves. Why should we take on the rest of it ourselves? What makes this versus, within the legal limit, the health limit that the EPA sets versus what's actually healthy for us? And why should we take on the additional cost ourselves for our families to invest in water purification?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have an answer for you, but that is what's expected. There are several releases by the EPA that indicate that the homeowner would be responsible for any amount they want it lower than that. So,
which is okay, which is fine. So we're at the place where this is where we're at. Obviously we can advocate, we can call, we can do things, we can do grassroots efforts, we can go to our city meetings and demand things, on a local level, all of that. But in the meantime, why does why would we want to eliminate fluoride? Why would we want to try to reduce PFAs as much as we can? Why would we want to reduce some of these heavy metals?
yeah,
All of that. Obviously, you and I know why, but if people are, first, like, let's say they're like, okay, I'm listening to this because I want to know why. I want
yeah,
to learn what to do.
sure.
I spend probably 8 hours a week researching different topics, and I'll usually get on one a month until I feel like I know it. Right. And then you move on and then you kind of forget. So, why would we want to take on the additional cost to do additional filtration for showering, for bathing, for drinking? I use our Berkey water for cooking and for the dog. Why do we, I know I have shower filters on all of our showers and all of that. Right. So,
Yeah,
what can we tell people to convince them to take the leap?
sure. Well, I like talking about arsenic because I've studied it more than other things.
Yeah,
And
let's talk about it.
and I spoke to a biologist the other day who had very little concerns over arsenic. And I've spoken to other health professionals who have extreme concerns over arsenic, even at the levels that are below the legal level and above the health level. So even that small amount, they're like, don't drink apple juice, it has too much arsenic, that kind of thing. And I cannot get an absolute answer as to if it's above the health level, why are you so okay with it? If it is so dangerous above that health level, why aren't we doing something about it? It is just too argued about as a topic. But the things that people say can happen to somebody, and again, as we spoke about earlier, everyone's own body filtration is going to be different. But you have increased risk of bladder, lung, and skin cancer from arsenic, elevated rates of diabetes and cardiovascular problems. In children, you can have developmental effects of lower IQ, growth delays, and some neuropathy can occur. So arsenic is incredibly generalized. There is a reason why it was used as a murder tool back in the day. It's tasteless, odorless, and it caused a person to die from random stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. And what about PFAs?
Yeah, PFAS. So I went to someone's home a few months back, in January actually. So I guess that was 7 months ago. And they called me in because they were having their hair fall out. So in their home, they had this white calcification over all of their glass surfaces of where the shower would hit. Much more, their hardness was only 5, much more than would be accounted for with a 5 hardness. I had to do really thorough investigation to try and figure out what was going on with that. They had silica, they had chlorides, they had sulfates, but they also had PFAS at an incredibly high level, like 4 to 5,000 times the new standard. That in 2024, the EPA set a new standard for drinking water.
Up or down?
Down. So
Okay, good.
4 parts per trillion, but it doesn't get implemented till 2029.
Okay.
So we still have 5 years.
So they have to set up the infrastructure and the filtering and have dedicate places to send all of these chemicals. Got it. Okay.
There are a lot of places that are 4,000 to 5,000 times the current standard,
Right.
that high. And
And
there's,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Other than the hair falling out, cancer is a big one,
yep,
right? Fertility issues,
yep, it
big
passes
one.
the placental barrier.
Yep. Obesity, because the body stores it in the fat cells to keep it away from the body.
Yep.
Are there any other effects of
Yeah.
PFAS?
Yeah, hormonal disruption can occur as well. It can also suppress immune system. The problem with answering this question is there's like 10,000 different kinds of PFASs,
Right.
or something, maybe 12. I can't remember the exact number. It's over 10,000, and they don't all have the same effect. Hair loss is not a common cause of PFAS, but I had to do some deep research to find that it was a cause of some types to be able to give this person an answer. And then solving it was just a high grade catalytic carbon system. I mean,
Okay.
it was very
That's
easy to get rid of the PFAS in his house for skin.
interesting. Yeah, that's a really affordable filtration
Yeah,
system.
it is.
Did that also target some of the other elevated chemicals?
Yeah, it would have helped with, well, I mean, obviously it'll get rid of all the chlorine and chlorine byproducts. Carbon
Hmm.
is the best at chlorine.
Hmm.
And I also got him a reverse osmosis on top of that, though. So
Yeah.
we were able to get his water down by doing a softener system, some anion resin, and then catalytic carbon. That got his water to where it solved all of his problems, not just the hair loss problem, but also all the scale buildup, as well as having that backup reverse osmosis to anything that goes through those systems then is caught by that. So
Hmm.
reverse osmosis is a very inexpensive way to help resolve a wide range of things.
Yeah. My dad put one in under their sink that has, I think it's 3 filters plus UV light,
Yeah.
and then a remineralization. Um,
Yeah.
like so it's like 4 little tubes plus a UV light. And yeah, hit the water tastes amazing. And they use that for everything, but they still shower in them. So maybe for Christmas they're going to be getting shower filters. And they're it's just a carbon filter you replace every, 3 months. And my husband and I replace it, I think, every 9 to 10 weeks because, with 2 people, I mean, I have a family of 6.
Yeah.
So we go through them a lot, but yeah, the carbon filter does a lot. And we did notice my kids' acne got better. My daughter kept having like slimy hair that improved. We didn't really have any skin issues other than the acne, but then also the slimy hair improved. My son's curls got curlier. Again, there wasn't that like whatever the chemical
That's
reactions with the
yeah.
shampoo and conditioner and all of that. And I mean, it costs us, I think, $30 every 6 months. Like it's super, super affordable.
Yeah.
Obviously a whole home system would make life a lot easier. But in the meantime, we do shower filters and then we have a 6 gallon Berkey. The thing is humongous, but we go through it every day and a half
Yeah.
between all of us and the dog. And I use it for cooking. So we cook our pasta in it. Our rice, all of that stuff gets cooked in it. The only thing we do is we have a filter for our fridge for the ice, right?
And that's carbon. The Berkey is carbon plus some other option. Every Berkey has optional filters. I think you meant.
Yeah, we added the fluoride filters.
Yep.
So we have like I think it's 4 of the carbon, like the big carbon tubes
Yep.
on top, and then we have the additional filters underneath. So
Carbon's amazing. Do you know? I like talking about this just because it's so interesting. The reason carbon is so good at filtering is because it has inside each of those little like grains, and obviously those tubes are just compressed of that same stuff.
yeah,
They have micro sub and down to submicron level tunnels in all the little grains of carbon. And if you were to take a single gram of carbon and spread out its surface area, it would cover 3 tennis courts.
wow,
Yeah, that's
dang.
that's why it's so good. Because stuff that is not just getting trapped in, it's got a very, very subtle charge to it. So
Hmm.
anything that's traveling in that is polar is going to be pulled away from the water and captured on the sidewall by what's called adsorption, which means instead of going into it, it's stuck to the sidewall of it in the carbon, which is why carbon has to be replaced over time or in some
Yeah,
other way washed or cleaned.
yeah. We are with how many filters we have, it said replacing them once every 5 years.
Mm,
So I have like I have a Google Calendar, so like I have it like ready. Like every January we're replacing the fluoride filters. Those are annual,
yeah,
and then it says every 5 years if we're using it at the amounts that we are.
right.
It's like 5 years because I mean they're like at least a foot if not taller each
Yeah.
because our system is so big. Um, but yeah, we watched all kinds of videos to pick out which one we were gonna do, and all of them filtered out all kinds of stuff. Like it was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Uh,
true.
so let's talk more about testing. I don't know if anybody knows, but every year your city will send you a breakdown report of the chemical levels
Yeah.
in your water. And then you can go to, I think it's the environmental working group has like a breakdown of what those chemicals do. And is that correct? Is it the environmental working group? I'm pretty sure they have like a water breakdown.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can find your own municipalities, what's called CCRs, and or if you just go to your municipality on Google and type in the name of your city and water report, or the name of your water distributor plus water report, they're required to test and give a report of whatever's in their water. They don't test for everything. They're only required to test for certain things. There are companies that are nonprofits like the Environmental Working Group who then have these municipalities send them water, and they will do even more extensive testing. Almost every municipality is in the Environmental Working Group's tap water database. So if you go to the tap water database, put in your zip code, you can easily find your municipality in there. The only thing I'd caution people about this is people in water treatment don't like to use the EWG as often because it is they talk about they basically use fancy math to create a number of how many times the health guideline something is, and that number can, because of the way numbers work, look much bigger and much scarier than it really is. It does indicate, though, that it's above the health guideline. I just would not, if you see something that's 1,700 times the health guideline, if the health guideline 0, that's a difficult, how are you multiplying by 0? So it becomes yes, that number matters, but it's not actually 17,000 times matter. You know what I mean?
Right. So I guess my question is um if this is something of a concern, getting a professional like you and
Yeah.
your company to come out and test, it can more accurately give you the risk factors, I guess, of
Yeah.
your particular water for your particular home.
Right.
And then you can customize, as you've mentioned, you can customize the filtration systems needed for that your home's particular water, depending on pipes and history. Because Phoenix is relatively new. I mean, where we moved, it was built in 1990. I'm in the model home, right?
Okay.
So it's relatively new. But then you go, when I lived in Tennessee, some of those homes are hundreds of years old. But obviously piping came in the 50s, right? And it's not always updated, right? So there's lead and there's all kinds of stuff. There's roots that get in the pipes. Like there's all kinds of things, right? So obviously I mean, I'm a big fan of test, don't guess, right? Like I'm a huge fan of that.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, and what they show at the water treatment plant is going to be very different than what's at your home because of all the things it has to go through
Yeah.
to get there. Let's talk about somebody who is interested in going and getting tested and getting something specific for their home. What steps would they take?
Yes. Not every company is going to necessarily be, I don't know, as honest as our company kind of demands that our people are. So what I would recommend to everyone is that they get that CCR, they look at the Environmental Working Group, and then decide based on that, do they want to do more testing of their own? At which point they can go to any of the various companies who sell kits where they can do their tests. The one I recommend the most is called TAPScore, TAPSCORE, and they will sell you a kit for between $200, $300, $400 that does like 50 different contaminants, maybe 100. It depends on which one you get. And you have to select whether you're on a well or on city water, and that will give you the test in your home versus the reports that are out there. Once you have that, you can call a company like ours. Just make sure you are really like protecting yourself and making sure that you are making sure that they're being honest with you. But find out how good they are at interpreting the test results. Not every company that sells water treatment can even read a test result. They're not all the same. Some of them are trying to sell a product and the others are trying to do water treatment. So they're all different. You can, I mean, we help people nationwide, so you can reach out to us. But basically, find someone you trust. You can go to a lab, but one caveat is everyone at a lab is trained to think of the legal level as interchangeable with the health level. They don't even think of what the health level is unless you remind them that they're different. I've talked to a lot of lab technicians, a lot of them. And I frequently have to say, no, I don't want the legal level. I want the health level. And then they go, oh, okay. So that is important, but you can get that result interpreted. TAP score will do the same thing. They'll help you interpret the result. After you get that, it's pretty easy to then now it's in your power. I want to fix this, and this. Then reaching out to a local water treatment company can be a little safer. You can kind of vet them by saying, these are the contaminants I want to treat. What kind of media or filtration would you use to fix that? And make sure that they're not just saying one product does everything. Unless they've got a reason to say one product does everything, it doesn't always. And that's it. Like I hope that wasn't too much, but basically to summarize, test your water, get the test interpreted, make your own decision as to what you think is best, and then get help remediating it.
I think that for me, that was super crystal clear,
Okay.
right? But I come from a place where I'm helping people deal with food sensitivity panels and things like that, where there's a lot of nuance in there. Like it looks really scary when you're popping positive for 150 foods, but really only 5 of them are really worrisome, and things like that. And a lot of times it's very nuanced, but I think that a little bit of education goes a long way. The environmental working group does a lot to help educate you on which chemicals are
Yes.
worrisome. But then also, I think you've done a good job through this our whole discussion about like the options. Like that guy who had the high. I keep saying PFAs, and you think you say PUFAs. PUFAS.
PFAS.
PFAS. There we go. PFAS.
Forever chemicals.
Yeah, forever chemicals. But it's really, you have to determine what you think is the most important. But when you go to any company and you're educated and you say, these are the chemicals I want to, and then, but also do a little bit of research, you can see what is carbon filter, what is RO filter, what does a water softener do? Like you can get generalization so that you at least go in educated. And I think you've done a good job of giving people a really solid place to start. And the name of your company is Pure Water Northwest.
Yes.
So I love giving people resources. I think that that's really important. So I'm really glad that you're a nationwide resource and you have high standards for your employees. I think that's really huge. And it's hard to find a company that will do that, right? We just had a solar company come to our house and give us we finally just signed the paper after 2.5 hours, and we're like, we'll cancel it later. Like, just leave us alone, please.
Just something to get them out of your house.
Yeah, because 2.5 hours, with a 1-year-old trying to, it was a lot.
I don't.
But yeah, there's something between selling a system and helping somebody remediate a problem. I love that you said remediate, because that's a word. That's a good word.
Yeah.
It's not just selling a product, it's remediating a problem. When you go in with I want to remediate your problem, that's a whole different approach. And I really love that. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. I think that this was probably one of my favorite discussions, because water is so huge and it's so complicated. And like you said, there's so much nuance in there. It's hard to get a straight answer, and it's really hard to figure out what's truly harmful and what is okay.
Yeah.
And I think we have been able to give people a really solid place to start. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
I truly enjoyed this conversation with Cydian. What really stands out to me is the ease in which people can create fear around chemicals that is undeserved. Chemicals added to water which are necessary to prevent deadly bacteria from growing, for example. Learning from those who have studied, dig into the nuance, and share that knowledge is an incredible blessing. I have done this for 13 years now, and because of all the differing and conflicting voices in the nutrition world, I wanted to make it easy for you to figure out what eating healthy looks like, and when needed, how to follow a therapeutic diet safely. So I created the Therapeutic Food Framework, my online health coaching program. Knowing what to eat is completely different from figuring out how to eat that way in the real world. how to eat healthy when you're sick and have zero energy, when you don't have the mental capacity for figuring out how to change things up, or when you're outright confused because everyone is saying something different. I give you a framework and a launching point to show you what eating for chronic disease symptom reversal and plain old healthy eating looks like. No need to be an expert in the kitchen either. You can be new to cooking or an expert cook, and you'll be able to make simple and delicious recipes you and your loved ones will love that support your health versus tearing it down. And all those roadblocks that have hindered your journey in the past, you have a coach who can help you overcome them with different strategies and support so they no longer trip you up. You deserve to feel your absolute best, and I would love to help you navigate the food side while Cydian can help you navigate the water side. Head down to the show notes to learn how to connect with Cydian and more about the framework. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you found this episode helpful, would you do me a favor and help others find it by leaving a review, sharing a screenshot on social media, or sharing the link with a friend? By you sharing what you've learned, others are able to find this podcast and join our community. Be sure to check out my website, www.roadtolivingwhole.com, for over 160 delicious recipes, a variety of meal plans, and a blog packed full of even more healthy living tips. If you'd like to learn more about how to work with me as your coach, you can schedule a free consult through www.roadtolivingwhole.com/health-coaching/. Until next time, friend. Bye.